A conversation needs to be had for us late 20s to early 30-year-olds. I know I'm in the majority when I say my life looks nothing like the way I thought it would at this age. And when I was, 20, 21 at the time, 30 sounded so old. It sounded so far away, but in reality, it went by in the blink of an eye. It really seems like a different lifetime ago and yesterday at the same time. If you were to tell me the decisions I made or the things that I would have gone through between 20 and 30, I would have been like, you're lying. I wouldn't do that, but I in fact did that. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. What sucks about reaching this age and not meeting your own expectations is also comparing yourself to everything that's going on around you, like your friends, your peers, and especially social media or what society tells you is normal and not normal. We're so flooded with influencers on social media being so disconnected from reality that they make content we can't relate to anymore. An example of that is this makeup artist. I know there's the Jaclyn Hill girl who everybody in her comments was like, you're just so disconnected from reality. We can't relate to your $20,000 shopping hauls. We don't care about your PR packages. There's another one too. I think her name's Michaela Neguera. I think that's how you say her last name. No hate to these creators at all. It's just something that I've noticed a disconnect in where they're probably, I think they're about in that same age range. Jaclyn Hill might be a little bit older, like mid 30s, but I think Michaela is also like 30. And they just are living a completely different life while meanwhile people like us are struggling to pay rent on a single income in this housing market, in this economy. And there's the relationship influencers that make people fall in love with and be jealous of their relationships. Christy and Desmond Scott were a huge relationship couple. If you guys are on TikTok, there was Bryn and Mario, who seemed like amazing, fun loving couples, and I'm sure that they were. But obviously, there was a bunch of problems behind the scenes that led to their breakup. But for the longest time, I'm sure there were many, many people comparing themselves and their own relationships to these relationships that they're constantly seeing online, being like, why can't I find a man like that? Why can't I find a woman like that? Our relationship isn't as fun as theirs. And ultimately, they're comparing themselves to something that doesn't even exist in real life. Again, I think Christy and Scott are a little bit older. They might be like mid 30s, but I think Bryn and Mario were more like late 20s age. But either way, comparable examples. And I know most people are probably at this point able to recognize that you shouldn't idolize influencers, that they're not showing everything and they're obviously living a not normal lifestyle. But even when you're comparing yourself to your friends who are married, engaged, having babies, and that's something that you want, it's not happening for you, especially when we're getting creeping up as women to the 30s mark, early 30s mark. I'm here to tell you and talk about how you should not do that and how it's going to be okay, and that wherever you are at this stage of your life, you are doing just fine. Society is hard on this age demographic because we're expected to have fully transitioned from our early 20s stage when we're really young adults or students, probably, into completing major milestones like buying a house or getting married and having kids. And if there's something on that list that you haven't completed yet, or if you're like me and you haven't done any of those things yet, and you're knocking on 30's door or a little bit past it, it is no surprise that we feel like we're behind in life or that we're some kind of failure. Your early 20s are like a trial period of adulthood. And when you don't really have a clear direction in life of where you want to go at that age, it's understandable. But as you creep up to your late 20s, early 30s stage, it's definitely more expected of you to have a clear direction and to have executed on that direction. Which, for that to be realistic for everybody, we really do have to make those big decisions young because it takes years to build up skills and to build up a career. And I think it's so unfair as a society. We put so much pressure to make those big life decisions on an 18-year-old. And any one of us can attest that 10 years later, what we wanted or what we thought we wanted at 18 is probably not what we want now at 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. And I'm lucky that I went to school for business at like 19 because ever since then, I have been building on my education and my career so that now at 29, I'm able to land that six-figure finance job. Thank God. But even me, when I first went to college, I was a bio major first. And I just had, the thought to switch to business because I was like, what am I going to do with a bio degree? Not every student thinks like that in that moment. Not everybody even knows what to do, even if they figure out they don't like their major and they want to switch. So I got lucky in that I have been building a career in education for 10 years. But for somebody, say, who went to school for nursing, finished, became a nurse, they hate it. And now they want to completely pivot. And now they're backing down their hours so they can go back to school to do what they actually really want to do with their life. And a lot of people look at that and say, oh, like maybe she's a little bit behind. She's back in school. She's career pivoting. And even though that might knock someone's confidence, it's completely normal to be doing that at 30. It's literally never too late to make a change. Even if you're someone who happened to be on the same career path for the entire decade of your 20s, there's probably a lot of people, more than you realize, that have made so many financial mistakes or got married to the wrong person. And all of those things have caused them to have to regroup and start over, and it puts them back so many years. Like, I have made some terrible, terrible financial decisions, decisions about like getting my dog before I was financially ready and had a stable living environment that set me back so much. Had to work my ass off, work 2 jobs. Sometimes I worked 24-hour shifts. I was a bartender. I would work my 9 to 5, get off my 9 to 5, come home, get ready for the bar. The one I worked at didn't close until 3 a.m. So I would literally get up from my 9 to 5 at 6 a.m. and then get home from the bar shift at night at 6 a.m. It was absurd. Worst time of my life, but it's just reality. And a lot of people do that. And a lot of people have to recover and restart. People have to get divorced, have to sell their house, pay out their 401ks that they started. It's all normal shit happens. And just because you're going through that and you find yourself starting from square one or just not where you thought you would be, or as compared to your peers, you don't really measure up to them right now. It's just completely normal. Everybody's life is completely different. As women, I definitely feel like we have it a lot harder in the relationship, marriage, and kids department. A lot of pressure from, especially if you come from like an immigrant or a traditional family, about when are you having kids, the pressure, your biological clock, you're 30, you're not married yet, you don't even have a boyfriend. All of that stuff is so anxiety inducing. And especially for somebody who already wants kids and probably is already having all of those thoughts themselves, it doesn't help that you go to Thanksgiving and your aunties are sitting there asking you why you don't have a boyfriend yet. That sucks. And also for people like me who are pretty set on not having kids, you have no idea how many times I've heard like the, oh, you'll change your mind, or oh, what's wrong with you, as if, having children is a woman's sole purpose in life. And I get treated as if I'm not mentally well. Shout out my mom. I'm not having kids, I don't think. Sorry, mom. But regardless, us as women unfortunately have to face invasive questions about our relationships, about our reproduction, probably mostly by family. But I have even had like strange random men come up to me and ask me why I'm not married, or if I'm married and why I don't have a ring on my finger. It's just really weird and gross. But it is the unfortunate reality right now. And don't let that make you feel bad about where you're at in your life. If that's something that you want and that you don't have, you have the rest of your life to figure that out. And you are not the only person by far who feels that way. I promise you that. I want to pivot back to talking about our finances and clear up any shame surrounding that. I think it's so important for you to realize that these milestones society says we should have hit by now have been created in a completely different social and economic era, where somebody could walk out of their high school graduation and get a job that paid enough for them to buy their first house, where that's just not reality anymore. Most people are going to college for 4 to 8 years, going to trade school, and coming out and making the same wages that their parents made, but to buy a house that's worth 5 times the amount now than it was back then. It is so much harder and takes so much longer to get your life started, especially as a single individual in today's world, than it ever has been before in American history. I'm talking about this as an American, although I know other places around the world are struggling just as bad. We simply don't have the same opportunities and buying power as previous generations before us. We actually are the first generation in American history to have a worse quality of life than the generations that have come before us. And I believe the average home buying age has increased from the 30s to over 40 years old. And it is just a fact of life in the moment. So you can at least absolve yourself from the previous societal expectations that you had to have all of these things done by 28, 32, because it's just simply not realistic anymore. And as unfortunate as that is for us, at least it allows you to take the pressure off yourself to have all of these accomplishments when I know you're working your ass off and you know you're working your ass off and things just aren't moving as quickly as you've seen them move before. It's not a reflection of you, it's circumstances outside of our control here in the US. And just be proud that you're trying your best and don't be so hard on yourself. I did mention briefly earlier that I finally landed my first six-figure corporate finance job. And as grateful as I am for that opportunity, I also still felt inadequate because I fortunately have a lot of successful women around me in my life who were already making that wage for years now. And I feel like I'm late to the game catching up and I should have been making that wage years ago and I'm not doing enough and all of this terrible stuff that comes with comparing myself when I shouldn't be because none of their lives are my life and my success is coming in my own time. And a lot of those women also have partners. So you have successful women who have equally successful partners and their quality of life and their standard of living is just so much greater than mine at this point in our lives. It's so hard to not compare myself when I'm sitting here in my little one bedroom like all by myself with my dog and just not going out to eat all the time, budgeting, not living the lavish lifestyle, going on dates, all that stuff that I see on all my social media. So it takes a toll on your confidence, but you just have to remember again, don't compare. Your situations are completely different and you're doing your best. My whole purpose for being on YouTube is to encourage you guys and make you guys feel motivated and excited about life. So I'm definitely not being negative, but I think it's so important that we recognize that there are circumstances outside of our control that are shaping our outcomes and our mental health. So if you felt like you went the traditional career route and college route that we were sold and you still feel behind in life, I'm here to tell you that you're doing a great job. Now that you hopefully feel better about your finances and your career, I'm here to talk about what we're going through in our late 20s and early 30s when our relationships are not up to our standards or where we thought we'd be at this point. To reiterate, I am not someone who ever daydreamed of marriage. When I was a little girl, I never pictured my wedding dress like all the other little girls. That sounded really pick me. That's not how I meant it, but I'm sure the people who can relate to that understand what I mean. It just was never like a priority for me. So at this age, I definitely wasn't expecting to be single and completely starting over in my dating life, but I am not mad about it. I actually see it as a huge blessing because right now I can reinvent myself and paint from a blank canvas. I can move where I want to move. I can pivot careers when I want to pivot careers. I'm doing so many things at once right now, like literally working full time grad school, working dog and doing YouTube. It's just so much on my plate, but all of it is to benefit my own life. And I don't have to worry about catering to anybody else. It sounds selfish, but it's true. We all need a selfish era, a selfish season to self develop. And in saying that is more to encourage the women who are really disappointed that they're not married yet or have their lifelong person yet. There are so many benefits to being single at this age. And if you've had previous relationships that have failed and you've actually reflected and grown from them, you have a brand new set of standards that you get to choose from. You know what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not, and you know what you won't settle for. So when the next person comes, you'll be able to identify the right person from what you learned in your previous mistakes. And statistically, unfortunately, I'm not talking to you married women, but if you haven't been married, you just avoided your first divorce, which I've heard from surrounding friends and family. Divorce absolutely sucks. So that's another positive. It's okay to be sad about not having the family or the relationship that you thought you would have by now. Just because there are benefits to being single at this age doesn't mean that your feelings are invalid about that. But just know, and I'm sure you do know, that women are having healthy babies in their late 30s and early 40s so much more frequently now. You have so much more time than you think. Just don't ever make decisions from a place of fear and get in the wrong relationship just for the sake of being in one and the chance to have a baby. Your chance will definitely come. What I want to talk about next is not really a societal expectation, but definitely something we experience as we approach our 30s, and that's how much our friendship dynamics change. Obviously, when we make friends in high school or college, they're probably centered around casual hangouts like drinking in a basement in high school, going to bars when you turn 21, or going clubbing, whatever you do that maybe doesn't revolve around alcohol. That was my experience. And as you get older, you obviously pick up more responsibilities. You're working full time, you have a kid, you have pets, you have rent to pay, you're older and the hangovers hurt way worse than they used to. And usually those kinds of friends who were around in that party stage kind of start to fall away because you guys didn't really have much more in common than the surface level friendships. Luckily, those who have real authentic friendships, they do continue on, but the dynamic that you guys have as you become real fully frontal lobe developed adults has changed. Obviously, as we get older, we start to make life decisions, and a lot of my girlfriends have decided to get married and have kids. Two of my really closest friends are stay at home moms, which is the exact opposite life route than I took, being single and, career focused. So now, two people that I spent so much time with and grew up with pretty much, I am in a completely different place in life than them. And although our bond is still really strong and we still love each other so much, it's difficult to make plans to get together. Everybody has different priorities, everybody has a different schedule. That's normal adult things, but there's just so much more nuance with our relationship that's different because even when I need dating advice, if I want advice or encouragement with school, they'll always be there. They'll always have my best interest in heart, but do they have any idea what I'm going through? No, they're married and they're not in school. Like they don't know. They don't have a career. They're home raising their families, raising their children. And if they were to ask for children advice from me, someone who has no experience with kids except for my beautiful nephew who I love so much, I'm not really a help. I have their best interest at heart. I'll tell them what I think is best for them, but is it the right thing? I don't know. And our friendship and our love for each other will never change, but going through different life paths is a very stark difference from, when you're younger. So just expect that change as you grow old is only natural. If you haven't grown from your friends or gone in a life path direction, sort of, then that's a problem. So it's normal, it's healthy, and the true friends that you make in life will stick with you through it all. An interesting perspective about all of this, if any of you guys are a little woo woo or into astrology, then you know this age bracket of like 28 to 32 is what's called our Saturn return. And even if you don't believe in astrology, it is comforting to know that this phenomenon is so common that it actually has a name to it. And our Saturn return is basically our adulthood initiation phase. And that's when the planet Saturn returns into the sign and the degree it was in when we were born. And it's meant to challenge all of our areas of life, like our careers, our relationships, to make sure that we're aligning with our authentic selves. And if we're not, expect some things to fall away. But rest assured, whatever falls away is supposed to be happening for our highest good, as the woo woo things do. With all that being said, fuck what society says about your life. Fuck what anyone else thinks about your life. Your life is for you, and you have nobody to please in this lifetime besides yourself. Comparison is the thief of joy. You are not supposed to have any particular financial status, career, relationship status by any predetermined age. A lot of famous and successful people didn't become that way until they were in their 30s or older. I actually have a little list of proof to read to you guys. I didn't feel like memorizing it, so I'm going to read it off my laptop. But Martha Stewart started her catering business at 35 and published her first book at 41. Chelsea Handler got her first talk show at 32. Vera Wang designed her first dress at 40. And Lizzo's music career took off when she was 31 after being homeless. There are so many great examples of women blossoming into their dream lives later than they were supposed to. So if you are watching this and you are 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and you are not where you thought you were going to be at this age, you are exactly where you're supposed to be, and you are doing just fine. I am done rambling. Thank you so much for watching. Anybody who stuck with this video the whole way through, I appreciate it, and I hope that you are so proud of yourself because you deserve to be. I can't wait to keep consistently making videos. I've been so busy with school and everything, trying to get into a consistent schedule. So it feels so good to record again, and I will see you in the next video. Love you guys.